All right, good afternoon. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. I'm taking a look here at setting up a position. This is a stock that I bought a little bit of this morning, and I came in and I bought the 115 calls on Valero, and you can see kind of how they've traded 240 up to 290. They traded down to 230. I'm in at 250, so it's one that I would like to make for the challenge. I think the option that it is that I'm in personally is a little too deep in the money. I want a little more torque than that. But let me go and show you the Valero chart here. Sorry, I hit on demand. Let me get out of that. Let's go back to real account. That's virtual. Somehow that kicked me into virtual. So I'm gonna actually log off here. Make sure I'm into the real account before making this trade. But Valero is a refiner, and you can see the price action. Big move up right here at the end of July. It's been consolidating for a little bit, and now having a nice move higher today. These refiners can move a ton. They can just move a lot in both directions, and they can be very profitable from an option standpoint if you're on the right direction. And with this move back above the 7 here today after this little kind of consolidation, I look at Valero. I think fundamentally it's 130, 140 stock. So a bit just trying to figure out how I want to play it here for the challenge. Do I want to go with some weeklies? Do I want to go with a little bit longer? How do I want to really kind of put this together? And so I'll show you the couple options that I'm looking at, but most likely I'll go with next week's options and run with it. But if you take a look at some of the other refiners out there, like Phillips 66, similar action. You take a look at and you can just see the volume, right? I mean, there's just some monster volume here in these, and they finally had a pullback during May, June, July. You look at something like Marathon, MPC, kind of the same chart as Valero. Used to have Tesoro TSO, but they were acquired, so they're no longer tradable. But even some of the smaller refiners, and I'm going to come into FinViz while Thinkorswim's opening up here. And if we just come in and look at some of the smaller refiners, you can see refiners are generally under this oil and gas refining and marketing sector or industry, however you want to put it. I'm just going to sort these out from the high volume ones, but you can see Marathon, Renewable Energy Group, no. Valero, PSX, Holly Frontier is a little bit different. This CVI is an interesting one. It trades just a little bit differently than the other refiners. But then you have Sunoco. So they all trade just a little bit differently. But really the oil and gas ones are Marathon, Valero, and PSX now. And, used to have, a few others, but there's been some bankruptcies, some mergers, some acquisitions. And so there are just not as many, out there these days. Let me get logged in here to Thinkorswim. There we go. All right, so that's logging in. I'll pull it over to this screen here in a moment. But anyway, we see these things on the move here today. They really kind of stand out to me in terms of just the overall, just pure price action, here with it. It's one of those where they don't really trade off the price of oil, right? So, price of oil, who cares? What they trade off of is the crack spread, the price of oil relative to gas. And, it's not always that simple, but generally, days where the UGA is up more than the USO. So the UGA is the gas ETF, USO is the oil ETF. They're both up today, but USO is up 0.7%. UGA is up 1.5%. And so this is oversimplifying the crack spread, but basically you think about you're a refiner. You're buying oil, right? You buy oil and you're turning it into gas, distillates, and all these other things. And the bottom line is you're selling those byproducts. And when the price of oil goes up, it's not necessarily a negative, as long as the price of all these other things that you're turning the oil into go up. What's even better is when oil goes down and the price of all of these go up. The difference, or what the company makes in terms of what it takes to crack the hydrocarbon molecule, right? Oil, they essentially crack it. They crack the molecule into other products, gas and jet fuel, all sorts of different types of things. And, that's why they call it the crack spread. They're cracking that molecule down. And, what are they? Well, yeah, sure, oil's $100 a barrel, but how much can they get when they crack it, right? And so that crack spread is that difference. And as that crack spread rises, refiners do really well. As that crack spread falls, refiners, they struggle. If we come in, you can see, I believe, let's try this one here. CME crack spread. There's a whole big thing on it. And then you could trade futures on the crack spread. Now, they're not highly liquid or anything like that, but you can trade the futures chart here on the crack spread. In fact, you can see the volume 0, 0, 0, 0, zeros, a whole bunch of zeros on the crack spread here today. And let's see if the chart is even going to give us anything. Yeah, it's not giving us much there with the liquidity, but you can see that. In fact, let me scroll down. You can see what happened to the crack spread. Yeah, these charts are terrible on this site. Anyway, if you come in, I'm not going to be able to get it to look really good on this computer here, but the crack spread, as it goes up, generally the refiners go up. As the crack spread falls, generally they go down. Now, keep in mind that's an oversimplification, but it's generally how they work. There are other factors in play, and one of the factors in play when it comes to these refiners, to me, is takeovers. These are cash printing machines right now. You take a look at Valero, and I'll just come into Y charts, and you just look at what's going on fundamentally with these names. There's been some really interesting action. Let me type it up here, VLO. We'll just come in and take a look at revs. But if you look at revenues over the last 5 years, what's been going on? I mean, revenues have been surging, right? They're not back to 2014, 2015 levels, but their revenues have been, moving on up, very, very nicely. Sometimes you're going to hear these stocks talked about from a margin standpoint. Well, you look at Valero, and their margins have finally bottomed in terms of some of their operating margins. And, they have started to improve. So, it's not all roses and, all-time highs and everything else for these stocks and for these companies, so to speak. But there's definite improvement in the metrics that matter. And what's happening is it's getting to their bottom line. And if we just look at the earnings per share, you see the earnings per share are up at an all-time high, or at least a 5-year high here. If we go back, all-time, you can see they are just about where they were in 2007, during the summer of 2007 in terms of the earnings per share. But you compare the revenue compared to it on that time. If we just look at revenue, you can see while their earnings are back to those levels, their revenues aren't. So their margins have improved. And, you talk about getting their revenues back up. What's going to happen? Well, yeah. Does some of this have to do with sanctions with Iran and all of that? Yeah, a little bit, especially since Valero has the ability to export right? You know, for a long time, the U.S. exports were closed, but you know, Valero, you know, has that ability to export, and definitely benefiting a little bit by those sanctions. So anyway, you know, for me, it's much the trade is technical, with a company that I like, that I think fundamentally has some solid things. So I'm looking for a technical entry, and you know, nice fresh move back above the 7-day moving average here today, and you know, you see this slow pull back, pull back, pull back, and then within 2 days it erases, you know, a month and a half worth of pullback. Generally, those go higher. It's only a matter of when, you know, and so this is one where I go, well, how do I want to position it? Do I want to position it for gains this week? You know, we could argue that, hey, you know what, it's going to surge in the next couple days. You know, the hourly chart looks good. You know, it's a little bit overbought, but, you know, these companies don't trade off overbought, oversold. You know, so it's one of those where how do I want to structure it, to me is the bigger question overall. So I have an order ready for Valero. I was kind of hoping as I was talking the stock would drift a little bit lower, but it hasn't. And then I have an order for some SPY puts, some SPY puts, and you know, not sure if I'll fill the SPY puts, but I do have an order ready for it. I don't really have any technical argument for SPY puts, other than we're getting a little far from the 7. In fact. And this Valero and the market itself, Valero and the SPY have nothing to do with each other. There's no correlation. So, yeah, if you go buy Valero, you wake up and you see the market's down 30 points, yeah, you can still see Valero go up. And if you wake up and the market's up 30 points, you can see Valero still down. So they're very, you know, very different there. But you can see the 7-day moving average and how far the S&P is getting from it. And I'll come in here and let's just put on a simple moving average of 7, and then we'll put on a moving average envelope here. And based on the 7-day moving average, and let's see here. Let's get to 1% here. But basically, this draws it like the Bollinger Bands, and you know, when we start getting a percent above the 7-day moving average, you know, it doesn't mean the market has to fall. You know, it doesn't always fall. It'll sometimes continue to drift up, but generally we start to get some pullback. The risk of pullback is increased. It doesn't always happen. You can see it right back here. You know, it just ran and continued on higher. But, you know, we're dealing with a market that in 4 days has essentially gone up about 70 points, you know, from where it opened Thursday morning. And, you know, a 70-point run without any sort of pullback. Yeah. Yeah, here. Again, I'm looking at these 117s for next week. You know, they're about $1.80, $1.90 right here. It's a lot of premium there. $1.40 for the 118s. You know, with as much as this stock moves, I mean, these are actually some pretty cheap prices for Valero. If you've never traded it before, you know, they're not exactly expensive here. I think I might give myself a little more time. I'm going to give myself an added week here. I'm going to come in. I'm just going to do 5. Not going to be too aggressive, but 5 of these 24th of August 118s. They're going for $1.81, $1.88. I'll put in $1.86 as a limit. See if they fill that. Yeah, they filled that at $1.86. So in at $1.86. Let me make sure the alert goes out here. All right, but the 24th of August, 118 calls. So an option trade, VLO, Victor, Larry, Oscar. what did I say, $1.86? Is that what I got? Yeah, $1.86 on 5 contracts here. So nothing too aggressive here. And the 24th of August, 118 calls. And boom, that should be out. All right. So anyway, that's I'm gonna run some Valero here. I may, I have 2,000 to trade with here this week, and I may add some SPY puts before the close of the market, maybe some Honeywell calls before the close of the market. Honeywell hasn't exactly pulled back here for me like I wanted to see, but it looks like okay, it filled me my last one, and let's see here, make sure I got that, make sure things are correct on that. 5 contracts, 186. So we're there. I'm in. Alert, just double checking it's out. They've been yep, alert went out. So they've been doing some things with the site. You'll see some changes coming in here this week. And so we've had a couple technical issues. Live stream though is all fixed, and hopefully we'll continue to stay fixed here. Me making this Valero trade probably rules out me buying Rio, not because either one has anything to do with each other, but both of them are, they're fairly aggressive trades, in terms of how they would move. You can see the Rio options are down to about 25 cents. I may go pick up some personally into the close, just as a lotto play. So I'll probably do that if they get down to 24. If they stay around, if I can pick them up at 25 cents or even at 20 cents, may wait just till tomorrow morning and see if there's not a gap down to buy them at, get them for 10, 15 cents. That would be ideal, and be able to run with it from there. Okay. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a great one. I'll be back on here. Give me about 20, 30 minutes. We'll talk about some of the market elements and, the KD signals and go from there. Have yourselves a good one.